Today we're getting controversial because we have 3 different products that have been designed to speed up the whole car cleaning process. But in doing so, it does mean we have to break some of the rules. And with the weather being diabolical outside, I thought what better opportunity than to get out there and have a proper test.
The subject we're working on today is a very muddy Range Rover, and I'm reviewing the Polar collection from Autoglym to see if it can really speed up the clean. And it's something I can see people using in weather like this because there's lots of foam and less need for perfection. But before we get to try them out, I'm getting the grotty jobs done first, which is cleaning the wheels, tyres and arches, which consists of my usual go-to products. And normally I spray, dwell and rinse, but because the wheels are wrecked and the client didn't care, I just got stuck in. I do actually have a dedicated video covering everything you need to know about wheel cleaning, and I will leave a link in the description below. Thankfully, it was a very quick and stress-free task, and I got it done in about 10 minutes. Once I rolled the car back and sprayed off the wheels, I could get on with the pre-wash, which meant it was time to break out Polar Blast. So Polar Blast is a pH neutral snow foam, so it's safe on all surfaces. And as you can see here in this footage with the Autoglym foam cannon, we're getting a nice thick blanket of foam, but it's not too thick to the point the foam becomes so dense it drops off too quickly. Actually, I'd say in terms of stability, this was seriously impressive, but the question I was hoping to answer was if a pH neutral snow foam alone would be good enough. Well, this is where I was shocked, because you can see clear as day in this footage, it removed more muck than I was expecting. And normally pH neutrals tend to be a bit weaker, and I wasn't holding out for a miracle, but this went above and beyond my expectations, and I think there's a very good reason why.
Well, that has everything to do with the weather. You see, the job of the snow foam is to cling onto that dirt for as long as possible. Now, it tends to struggle in the summer months because you have this warmer surface temperature, meaning the foam dries out just a little bit too quickly. Now, in the winter, it's a completely different story. Because you have those colder temperatures, you get better dwell times. Better dwell times equals maximum performance. So you may notice when you clean your car in the winter, you'll snow foam it and go, hang on a minute, this is actually working pretty well. Well, that's the reason why. So it is looking pretty good. So it's time to now ditch those 2 buckets and try this new unconventional method.
This next step is where we apply Polar Wash, and this works differently to the snow foam. It doesn't cling on like Polar Blast, so you have to work faster. And instead of using a bucket with shampoo, I'm just sticking with a rinse bucket. The reason being, I'm already covering the car in shampoo through the cannon, so I don't need to use the bucket. The downside I can see from this is, though, it's almost like you're going to be removing the suds with the mitt, not putting them on, which isn't a terrible thing, as you do have this barrier of lubrication, which does make it safe. And this is not the way that my brain's been trained to clean a car. As it starts to dry out, you do need to reapply, so keep that foam cannon close by, as in those warmer months, this will be essential. With the wash completed, it was time to seal the Range Rover. But before you do this, you have to re-wash the foam cannon and nozzle out thoroughly to avoid the sealant getting mixed up with any other Polar Wash. When measuring, you don't need a full foam cannon here, you just need 200 ml of water with 40 ml of product, which is the equivalent of 4 caps. And because you don't need much, you got to be quicker and you don't need to let it dwell, so just get it on and get it off. Now there's a few important things to note. You can't let this air dry afterwards. Even if it's light drizzle, you just need to run a towel over it. Also, I get asked about what happens when this gets on the windscreen, because it's not recommended, and that goes for all sealants like this. And the reason is because there's a risk of wiper blade juddering, and when it says avoid the windscreen, it is just on the word of caution that it could happen. It doesn't mean it will happen every single time, but it just covers them in case of any comebacks. And the quickest and easiest way to fix this problem is just spray over with some glass cleaner afterwards and you'll be fine.
In a few moments' time, I'm going to be revealing the before and after with this sealant so you can see it in all its glory. But we're going to start off with this foam cannon. By the way, it's incredible. The products in combination with this cannon are just sublime. I had no faults there. But there was a little bit of a drawback because you only have 1 cannon or 1 jug, let's say, and you've got 3 different products. Now, when you go from the snow foam to the shampoo, there's never going to be any problems. You don't need to rinse it out. But when you go from the shampoo into the Polar Seal, you have to make sure that you clean out the nozzle and you clean the jug thoroughly first, because if you don't do that, you're basically going to mix the chemicals and you may not get the finish that you're kind of hoping for. And speaking about having your chemicals, what will you be doing with them if you have some left over? If you've got some snow foam, are you going to waste it or are you going to save it for another day? That means you then got to pour it out into another jug, and this is why I prefer this idea. And I just feel that if Autoglym adopted the same idea, not necessarily copy, but if they had 2 more jugs and they had 2 more lids as well, I think selling this as a complete kit with those extra 2 jugs would probably help them sell even more units than they're already doing. And also another quick thing to mention is with this Polar Wash, so what I was finding was when you were spraying it on the car, initially it's great because you get this blanket of foam, but it doesn't dwell the same way that a foam would. So when you're trying to wash it off, you're getting bits that are drying out around the corner, and then you're looking at it going, I can't tell whether I've actually sudded that area or not. And this, I know it sounds weird coming from a car cleaner saying that, but I was getting areas that I was missing, and then I was having to go back round again, re-foam the whole door, and then I was going over it again just to doubly make sure that I'd covered the whole vehicle. So it goes back to another point. It was actually taking me even longer doing it that way instead of putting the suds in a bucket and then putting it on the car, because at least when you do it that way, you can see where you've been.
Now it's time for a quick fire round of Q&As, and we're going to start off with number 1. So what's the difference between Autoglym Polar Blast and Polar Wash? Well, one's a snow foam used for the pre-wash and the other is designed for the contact wash stage. So Polar Blast can pull away the dirt, whereas Polar Wash is designed to be assisted with a mitt. Can you still wax your car after using Polar Seal? Well, the answer is yes, you can, but it's pretty pointless. It's overkill and it defeats the object of using Polar Seal in the first place. How often shall I use Polar Seal? Realistically, you should be using this anywhere around 4 to 6 weeks as an average, but definitely not any sooner. Can I just use Polar Blast instead of Polar Wash? Well, yes you can, but it would only be if the car isn't really heavily soiled. So perhaps you're cleaning cars on a forecourt, or you're just washing off debris from bad weather from the previous day. It's not something I would do, but it's still a tried and tested method that still works. As promised, here are some before and afters with the Polar Seal in action, and I must say these results are slightly different to some of the other brands I've tried out, but nevertheless it was a very successful experiment. And whether you agree with ditching the 2 buckets or not, you still need to understand that not everybody will think the same way. For many viewers watching, they may just want a quick and easy way of cleaning and protecting their car without all the faff of getting too technical.
So this is definitely an effective way of cleaning your car. However, maintaining it during these winter months is no easy task. However, I've already gone and done all the hard work because I've got a video that covers the top 15 ways that you can keep your car cleaner for longer, and it's right here.